Winged Nation presents, presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils.
Tony Stewart, Smoke, bigger than life, an icon in worldwide motorsports, an icon in American motorsports, and yes, an icon in sprint car racing. A three-time NASCAR Premier Series champion. He won the 1997 IRL Championship, two-time USAC Midget Champ. He won the Silver Crown Championship, and he has won races in every kind of car known to mankind. He also owns a World of Outlaw sprint car team, driven by Donnie Schatz. He owns the All-Star Circuit of Champions and owns the famed Eldora Speedway, and it was there at the Eldora Speedway that our Ashley Stremme caught up with Smoke Tony Stewart. With thousands of laps logged, Drydene's DRF racing oils were built and proven on the track, and now they're ready for your race engine. DRF is engineered exclusively for high horsepower racing engines that require maximum performance against the toughest competition. And DRF racing and break-in oils are built with competition-grade ZDDP to protect critical engine components while boasting improved torque and horsepower and superior temperature reduction. To get DRF in your engine, go to drfracing.com or call 1-877-DRYDENE. And now, here's Ashley and Tony.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Stremme, and joining me today I have this guy, Tony Stewart. Thanks for joining me today, Tony. I appreciate it.
Glad to do it.
So, pretty cool stuff coming out this year. Inducted into the 2020 class Hall of Fame. Just a little bit about that, your emotions, what that was like.
Well, the good thing was that the announcement came the day after I got inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in Daytona. So I was a little softened up after that one, but I'll be honest, I wasn't real excited about going in yet.
Really?
Because I'm like, that's stuff after your career's over and you're going down the road and doing what old people do afterwards. But I'm still racing. I'm still running 99 races this year. It's like, well, I'm not ready to go into Hall. And I'll be honest, this is how juvenile my mind thinks at times. The biggest thing that upset me the most is like I have to take that weekend off now, and I know for sure 2 races, maybe 3 races that I'm not going to get to run next year because of the Hall of Fame induction. So, but when you get a step back from it and you get the juvenile mind put on hold for a little bit, it's pretty cool. It's a huge honor, obviously, and I'm proud of what we did in NASCAR, and hopefully we keep racking up stats as an owner now.
Well, I don't really think it falls obviously for the NASCAR Hall of Fame, that's what it falls in, but your stats throughout your entire career of racing is pretty impressive and several pages long. But that being said, your 7-year-old self that started racing moons ago and your teenage self, if you could kind of put yourself back in those shoes, knowing what you've accomplished and being inducted into these Hall of Fames and kind of putting yourself, is there an inner kid just jumping up and down inside that's just screaming because of what you have accomplished over the years?
Yeah, but if I went back and knew what I was going to do, I probably would have been in a lot more trouble. I definitely would not have applied myself. I already didn't apply myself in school as it was, and I would have been worse at that if I knew what was going to happen down the road. But if you don't apply yourself, you end up like guys like Frank Beers and stuff. If you don't really work hard at it, so you gotta work hard in school so you can try to be better than that. So.
Absolutely. Well, we talk about that extensive racing career. Obviously, it all started in go-karts. Then it turned into USAC. You were the first one to win the Triple Crown, if you will, in the USAC division, running all 3 series and winning championships, to IROC, to Indy. Basically, I feel like with you, Tony, if it's got a motor, you're willing to race it.
Well, it's because I realized at an early age I was too lazy to work a real job, and I needed to figure out that driving cars was kind of my niche. So, I didn't, I think back in that day, I was kind of at the tail end of an era where guys jumped around and drove a little bit of everything. But You definitely don't see that anymore in this day and age, for sure.
If there's one thing that you haven't had the opportunity to climb behind the wheel of, what would that be?
I would say probably still a top Fuel Dragster.
Okay.
And Don Schumacher's going to call me tomorrow and sit there and go, I told you have an open invitation. So I just, I'm not sure. I'm not sure right now. I need to be trying to figure out. It's not going forward that scares me. It's the trying to figure out how to stop at the other end's the part that I'm like, man, I could screw this up in a hurry. So I don't know. But it's, I've been around those guys a lot, and you know, it looks like a lot of fun to me to sit there and go from 0 to 330 in 1,000 feet.
Indeed. And with that being said, you can pretty much race whatever you want. Why do you choose sprint cars?
Honestly, because of all the cars I've ever driven, it's one of the easier cars to drive, but it's one of the hardest cars I've ever driven to be good in and fast in. You know, everybody, and especially when the tracks are sticky, everybody's fast. I mean, everybody can hold it wide open and steer it around there. But when it starts slicking off, and you know, guys like Donnie Schatz and Brad Sweet and Tim Schaefer and Dale Blaney, guys that have done this for so long, that are really, really good at what they do, it's hard to get to their level. You know, everything else I've driven, I could get 90 or 95% of the way there pretty quick, and then it took a little longer to get the rest of it, but I could find a way to get there. The wing cars, it just seems like it's just really hard to find that last 5% to get to that level those guys are at.
And what do you think separates that? I mean, obviously it's fine-tuning your car, but I think technology has come so far so quickly that it's such a minimal change that gives you that extra 0.2 on the racetrack.
Yeah, and everybody has the same stuff. I mean, there's nothing trick about a sprint car anymore. I mean, they're about as basic of a race car as you could get, but it's just knowing, it's having that instinct and feel and knowing exactly, you know, I have the luxury of having Donnie Schatz drive for me, so I've got the best in the world, I feel like, driving my race car. And I sit there and listen to him, and I mean, he can pick apart every corner of his race car and tell you exactly what every corner's doing. Jimmy Carr, my crew chief, just gets, I'm too loose, I'm too tight, I'm down a little bit. I can't give him a quarter of the information that Donnie gives him, so it makes Jimmy's job a lot harder than Scuba's job working for Don. So, but that's what makes those guys good, is being able to, he's just got that feel and knows how to pick apart every corner of his race car, and he knows what feel he's looking for to get the result he's looking for.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned Donnie Schatz is your driver, and he is the best in the business, there's no doubt about it. But what's it been like owning a sprint car team and kind of fielding that direction also with the NASCAR stuff with Stewart Haas?
I hope he doesn't see this, because I don't want to give him a bigger head than he's already got. But it's really cool, because like I say, the nights that I'm not racing and I go to the races, it's really cool for me to sit there and listen to him when he gets out of the car, and listen to him talk about his race car, and then listen to what he's looking for. And I mean, I'm older than him, but I learn a lot from him every time I'm around him. And that's the fun part for me, and it's been that way from day one. I mean, it was that way when we started TSR and we had Danny Lasowski in the car. It was fun to listen to Paul McMahon, to Craig Kinzer, and then we had Steve Kinzer, and then, you know, Donnie, obviously. So to listen to these guys talk about their cars, and to know at the end of the night, when we got it the way that they wanted it, we could go stand in victory lane with them because we did it as a team. That's the best part for me.
And I love the fact that you pretty much say, you know he is the best. You learn from him still, and I think that's what makes us racers. You know, we're willing to learn from anyone. Is there a lot of communication? Like, will he watch your races and go, man, you didn't do this right. You need to drive the corner harder. You need to be straighter here. Is there any of that goes back and forth between the two of you?
No, and thank God, because if he watched my races and watched me, I mean, I'd get yelled at all the time for doing everything wrong, probably. But you know, I watch his races as much as I can, and he's busy, and you know, he's got his business and family business up in Fargo, and he's a busy guy too. So just doing what he's doing and focusing on his car is really all I want him to do. I mean, when we're together and the nights that we get a chance to race with each other, it's fun to hear his input of what he sees. And the best part is if you do something right and he goes, hey, you did a really good job there. I mean, it's better than getting the check at the end of the night for me, because that's one of the best in the business, and they're telling you did a good job, and so that's what you search for.
And this season has come a long way for you. You have struggled in the past, but this year has really seemed to hit a niche or a stride for you. Several wins. What is it? Six?
Yeah,
six
or
now.
7.
About now, yeah. So what is clicking? Are you communicating better? Is the car just right? What is all of a sudden clicking this year?
Well, I think we can really point the finger. We did a test late in the year last year, and actually brought Donnie down too. And I think it was a scenario where when I came back to sprint car racing, in 2017, I mean, I hadn't been in a car for 2.5, 3 years and was way behind. And so it was real humbling of realizing how far behind I really was. And at the same time that I hadn't been in a car, my crew chief, my crew member, none of us had raced for 2.5, 3 years. So we were all behind. But when you're that far behind, for me as a driver, I'm like, man, I'm holding us back. And then we went to 2018 and we got a little bit better, but we just kind of were still stuck. And then you get to the point of frustration where you're like, well, is it me? What is it? Is it our cars? Is it the crew chiefs behind a little bit? What are we missing here? And so at the end of the year, we did a test session down in Florida, and mainly brought Don down because it's been fun, because when we've done test sessions in the past, Don and I can sit there and drive the same car and not be around when we debrief with the crew guys and say exactly the same thing, right, which makes it really good for both of us. It makes me feel better that what I'm feeling is correct, and it does the same thing for Donnie. He's told me the same thing. It makes him happy when we're saying the same things. So it just helps validate what we're feeling, and then helps us really narrow down what's going on with the car. But having him down there, and we made some changes that, he went out and picked up 3/10 in it, and then I got in it and picked up the same 3/10. And it's like, it's not just all of a sudden we changed something driving style wise. that 2 guys picking up the same amount of time, it was the car. So that's how we started the season, and we got off to a pretty good start. But it's like I say, this is a very humbling sport, because you can be good one night and you come back the next night and not even make the A main. And PA Sprint Week for us was an absolute disaster, a nightmare, except for one night. So it's hard, and that's why we're running so many races this year, is to try to get caught up to these guys. And I just don't know any other way to get caught up to these guys other than just be in the car as much as we can, racing every night that we can. It's about to run me in the ground doing it, but it's it is the only way to really get caught up to these guys and get to the level that they're at.
And especially these last 2 years, it's been frustrating with all the rainouts we've been dealing with. This year has been incredibly insane for how much rain we've dealt with. And I kind of want to get away from the racing side of things and dive into the ownership side of things with the tracks that you own, as well as the All-Star Circuit of Champions. We all know what it's like as a race car driver to go to the track and be rained out. Yeah. It's frustrating. You don't get to sell t-shirts. You're not making a payday. But what is that like from the track side of perspective, as well as owning a series? How does that work for you and your relationships with the tracks you work at and own when it rains out?
When it rains out, everybody loses. The fans that have driven to the track have lost the money they spent on gas, food, trying to go to the racetrack. The drivers, the cost of them getting to the racetrack, they've lost. The teams, to tow the rig up and down the road. The tracks, the advertising dollars that they put into it, and the man hours that they put in of work, whether prepping the track the whole week and then you get rained down on race day. And as a series owner, I mean, even if we don't race, we still have employees we have to pay. I mean, they still came to the track. And they're on salary, so everybody loses. Nobody wins. Mother Nature is the only one that wins, and I'm not a really big fan of Mother Nature. I'll be honest right now. I mean, we literally had 11 out of 12 races rained out, and 10 in a row. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's just. We've been joking around with our competition director, Eric Walls, because it's his first year as our competition director, and it's like, man, you're like kryptonite here. We may have to get rid of you. So we call him Rain Man now. So we're like, man, well, let's see if we're not racing with the All-Stars on a particular night. We sit there and go, well, I wonder if Rain Man's going to get his show in tonight. So we all give him a pretty hard time, but he's got a pretty good sense of humor.
Well, you have to. I would assume dealing with all the BS that happens and with the rainouts and of course dealing with you. But
what do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that.
But you wear so many hats and you do so much, and it's all around the sport of racing. Obviously, as you can see in the background, we're here at Eldora Speedway, and I kind of want to talk about that because this place, it brings its own sense of fame and fortune to itself, just in the sheer fact that everybody wants to win at Eldora. And why do you think that? I mean, obviously with the Boltzes, when they started this deal, they kind of created that. And how do you continue that legacy? And why is this place such a famed place to win at?
And that's the hard part, is continuing the legacy of what Earl and Bernice Boltzes built here. It's, that's what we try to keep in mind. Every time we do something at the track, we sit, or I sit in the back of my head and go, what would Earl and Bernice say about this? And for the first couple of years when we bought the track, Earl was here every night, and so I would sit there, and when I had an idea of something I wanted to do, I would find Earl and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? And I can honestly say, which I was really happy about, there wasn't one scenario where he said, I don't know if I like that idea or not. So that made me feel good that we were at least going on the right track. And then once we lost Earl and Bernice's health doesn't let her come to the track as much as she'd like now, but at least gives me the feeling of, I felt like I know what direction Earl and Bernice want this facility to go in. And I've got a great promoter with Roger Slack. I mean, he learned from one of the best in the world with Humpy Wheeler in Charlotte. So to have him here is a huge asset. It really allows me the opportunity to just stand back and let these guys do their job. Rob, our guy that does the racetrack, has every year just got better and better and better at us. So, Kings Row weekend, for example, I don't even race during Kings Row weekend because I want to make sure I'm helping with the racetrack, and it's getting to where Rob's got it pretty much under control, and I don't have to worry about anything. So it's nice. It gives me that flexibility now to actually come to the racetrack and go out and see the fans in the campground a little more, and actually be a race fan and actually watch the show versus feeling like I got to work all night.
We see these racetracks across the country growing, especially the dirt side of things. Facilities becoming better, being safer, just growing. What can we see for Eldora in the future? Do you have any big plans that you want to do to the facility?
Every year we have a wish list at the end of the season, and the column is, what is the project? The next column is the most important to me, is what does it cost? The next column is, how long is it going to take from start to finish? So we all have our ideas, and we all contribute to that list, and then we sit there and pick what we try to pick something that the fans are going to notice, that the drivers and teams are going to notice every year. So the projects that we do, we've got a really big one in our mind right now that people would tell me I'm insane if we did it, but it would also be something those people that thought I was insane would think it's really cool too. But it's a really big project, and it's one that's definitely down the road, but it's one that's real important to me right now.
Awesome, that's really cool. I'm excited to see what it'll be eventually.
I wish I could tell you. But.
Well, I do have a question. Why the Love Tunnel is called the Love Tunnel?
Actually, Earl had named it the Love Tunnel back in the day when and I have no idea why Earl named it that. When I saw the tunnel the first time, I'm like, what does this mean? There's going to be people making out in the tunnel? I don't understand this. But if you look now, there's a plaque that says it's the Eddie Gossage Love Tunnel. So Eddie Gossage and I are great friends, and I was really mad one day because we were coming back from a hospitality appearance outside the racetrack on the front stretch and had to come in the tunnel. Well, there was the Budweiser Clydesdales were coming through. They had a car show line that was coming through, and we were going to be late. We literally almost missed the drivers' meeting, which meant we were going from a top 4 starting spot. We would have had to go to the tail of the field, and I got so mad. I wrote a letter to Eddie and copied NASCAR on it. And so now when you go to Texas Motor Speedway, in turns 1 and 2, there's a bridge that goes across, and it helps with the traffic flow, and it's the Tony Stewart Bridge. So I thought, well, what can I do to honor my friend? And I thought, well, what better way than to put the plaque, the Eddie Gossage Love Tunnel? So I thought it was very fitting. So it was my love for him for what he did for me.
I love it. Eddie Gossage is the track president at Texas Motor Speedway. So really, really good stuff there. I love that you kind of repaid the favor that he,
absolutely.
You know, tried to help you guys out for sure. But I'd be remiss to not talk about your dad, Nelson. I don't get to see him often, but I always love to get to see him when he's out at the track. It was last year here at Eldora that I got to chat with him. He's always a trip. Talk about what it was like growing up with him and how much he really kind of pushed the racing side of things for you.
That's a very good word, is pushed. Everybody loves my dad, by the way. My dad's 81.
And he still races, correct?
He was till last fall. He had a real mild heart attack, and he's just got clearance from the doctor to get off the blood thinner medicine and all that. So I think he'll be back in a TQ before the end of the year at the age of 81. So that's pretty cool. But he was, everybody, it's funny because everybody goes, oh, I love your dad, I love your dad. I'm like, you should have been around when we raced together. Because when I drove for him, he was not that nice. But because of that, he helped shape me in racing, who I am, and you know, he didn't let you mess around and slack off and just play like the other kids. I mean, he wanted you to be focused on what you were doing, and that's, you know, looking back on it, that was definitely the right decision.
Well, you know, he wanted to see his money go to good use.
And he didn't, and we didn't have a lot of it back then.
Right,
So the money that was spent, we, you know, we had to do more with less, and so, you know, for my family to sacrifice, and you know, my sister was a part of that sacrifice too, of not getting things that she wanted because we went racing, and so I don't think it was unreasonable on my dad's part to sit there and say, listen, we're putting this into it, you have to put that much an effort into it.
Well, I think that you've also repaid them as well for what you've accomplished in your career and will continue to do. It's not over, just like you said, but I appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
No, thank you, I appreciate it.
Tony Stewart, so much passion, and we're glad we had the chance today to share a little bit of that passion with you here on Wing Nation Presents, presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils. With thousands of laps logged, Drydene's DRF racing oils were built and proven on the track, and now they're ready for your race engine. DRF is engineered exclusively for high horsepower racing engines that require maximum performance against the toughest competition. And DRF racing and break-in oils are built with competition-grade ZDDP to protect critical engine components while boasting improved torque and horsepower and superior temperature reduction. To get DRF in your engine, go to drfracing.com or call 1-877-DRYDENE.
Winged Nation Presents, presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils.